It was a Friday afternoon, the kind of day when the sun hits just right, the sky glows golden, and everything feels like a movie scene. I remember leaning against my sports car, the one I'd saved for years to buy, polished till it shone like liquid fire under the sun. It wasn't just a car for me. It was a dream, a statement, a reflection of everything I had worked for. That car carried my story, my pride, my late nights of struggle. And maybe that's why what happened that day burned so deep into my heart. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation written in broad daylight. Her name was Aisha, the girl I thought I'd spend my life with. We'd been together for over a year. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was my world. The way she talked, smiled, teased. Everything about her had this innocent charm that could melt anyone. I trusted her more than I trusted myself. And maybe that was my biggest mistake, giving someone the power to destroy me so easily. That afternoon, I was supposed to pick her up after her class. She had texted me in the morning. "Babe, don't be late. Okay? I want to go for a drive today. Love you, face blowing a kiss." I had smiled at the message like an idiot, my heart racing at the thought of seeing her again. I'd even filled the tank, cleaned the seats, and sprayed her favorite vanilla-scented perfume inside. I wanted everything to be perfect, because when you're in love, you do stupid little things thinking they matter. But fate had other plans. I reached her campus about 10 minutes early. Instead of texting her, I decided to park a little away from the main gate, just to surprise her. I wanted to see her expression when she spotted my car, when she'd run toward me with that smile that made the world stop. That was the plan. But as I stood there, leaning casually against my car, I saw something that froze my breath halfway in my chest. A tall guy, Arslan, the so-called school hunk. Everyone knew him. He was the type every girl wanted, rich, confident, and dangerously charming. I'd never liked him, mostly because I'd seen the way he looked at Aisha, and how she sometimes smiled back a little too long. But I had brushed it off as harmless. I mean, we all trust the people we love, right? He walked toward the parking lot, and that's when I saw her, Aisha, my Aisha, walking beside him, laughing, twirling her hair, that same shy smile that once belonged only to me. My heartbeat quickened. At first, I thought maybe they were just walking together, maybe he was helping her with something. But then she pointed at my car, and her eyes lit up in excitement. Arslan smirked, looked proud, and opened the door like it was his. And before I could even process what was happening, I saw Aisha's expression shift. Admiration, excitement, disbelief. She said something to him I couldn't hear, but I saw her lips move. Then, just like that, she leaned in and kissed him, right there, in front of everyone, in front of my car. For a second, I thought maybe I was dreaming, maybe this was some sick joke. But the world didn't blur, it sharpened. Every sound became too real. The birds, the honking cars, the sound of her laugh right after that kiss. My heart didn't break slowly. It shattered, all at once, like glass under a hammer. I stood frozen. The same car I had bought with years of effort. The same girl I had loved with all my heart. Both were now part of a scene that looked like something out of a nightmare. Arslan had his arm around her, and she looked at him like he was everything she had ever wanted. That's when it hit me. She thought the car was his. That's why she was there, why she was smiling that way, why she kissed him. Because she thought the car belonged to him. The realization hit harder than the betrayal itself. It wasn't just that she cheated. It was why she cheated. For the car, for the status, for the illusion. Everything I believed about her love crumbled in a single moment. It wasn't me she had loved. It was the idea of success, the image of power, the shine of things money could buy. And I stood there, invisible, watching the truth unfold like a cruel movie I couldn't stop. My fists clenched, my chest tight. I felt a storm rise inside me. Pain, anger, disbelief, everything mixed together. But I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't run to her. Because at that moment, I realized something. When love ends, it doesn't end with noise. It ends in silence. Cold, heavy, unforgettable silence. I didn't move for a long time. My feet felt glued to the ground, my hands trembling slightly as I stared at them, laughing, flirting, completely unaware that I was watching everything. My mind was racing, but my body refused to react. Have you ever felt that kind of stillness? The kind that's so quiet, it feels like time itself has stopped mocking you? That's how it felt. The world didn't care that my heart was being torn apart. It just kept moving, just like them. I finally exhaled and turned away. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. My throat burned with unshed words, with all the things I wanted to scream at her. I walk away, slowly, each step heavier than the last. The car, the betrayal, the kiss, everything was spinning in my head, looping over and over like a cruel replay. And in between all that pain, a single thought kept echoing. She thought the car was his. That one line changed everything for me, because it wasn't just about her cheating. It was about who she became in that moment. I had seen the real Aisha that day, stripped of the love and smiles she used to wear around me. The mask was gone. What I saw was greed, wrapped in beauty. I got into another friend's car that was parked nearby. He had arrived late to meet me for lunch, and when he saw my face, he didn't even ask questions. I just told him to drive. I remember staring out the window, the campus fading behind us, while inside me everything collapsed. My chest hurt, but not in a physical way. It was that dull, constant ache that comes when something inside you breaks quietly. When I reached home, I sat in silence for hours. My phone buzzed again and again. Her messages, "Hey, where are you? I thought you said you were coming. I saw your car in the parking. Did you leave already?" Each message made my stomach twist tighter. She was still pretending. She had no idea I had seen everything. For the first time, I didn't reply. I just let the phone light up and go dark. Over and over, like a heartbeat that no longer mattered. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile, but not for me, for him, for Arslan, for the image she thought he owned. I remembered how many times I had told her I didn't care about money or status. That love was enough, and she had agreed. She had said, "That's why I love you, because you're real." But how real could love be if it changes the moment a fancy car appears? Around midnight, I got out of bed and went to the garage. The car sat there, silent and shining under the light. I stared at it. The same car that had made her eyes sparkle, the same one that had now shown me her true face. For the first time, I hated looking at it. I had worked day and night for that machine, but now it just felt like a curse, like a mirror reflecting how easily people could be fooled by appearances. I sat on the cold floor beside it, running my hand along the fender. My reflection looked back at me, tired, broken, smaller somehow. And I whispered to myself, so this is what love costs. The next day, I didn't go to college. My friends texted, asking if I was okay. I ignored them. Aisha called, again and again, until finally she stopped. Maybe she was angry. Maybe she was confused. Maybe she had already moved on to the guy she thought was richer. It didn't matter. I had already lost her long before that kiss. But destiny wasn't done playing with me yet, because a few days later, I saw her again, and this time, she saw me. It was at a small cafe near the campus, one we used to visit together. I had gone there with a couple of friends, trying to act normal. When I walked in, she was there, sitting across from Arslan. For a second, her face froze. Her eyes widened as she recognized me. And then she looked outside and saw my car parked right there. The expression on her face changed instantly, from confidence to confusion and then horror. I could almost see the pieces falling into place in her mind. That car wasn't Arslan's. It was mine. She stood up, her lips parting like she wanted to say something. But I didn't stop. I walked past her, straight to the counter, ordered my coffee, and sat down. My friends noticed attention, but I didn't explain. I just stared into my cup, listening to the sound of her voice breaking as she argued with Arslan. He tried to calm her, but she was shaking her head, glancing at me again and again. That's when I realized karma had arrived early. The same car she used to fall for someone else had now turned into truth that exposed her. And for the first time since that day, I smiled. Not out of pride, not out of revenge, but out of the strange peace that comes when life finally shows its own justice. She came toward me slowly, her heels clicking against the cafe floor, her face pale as if the ground beneath her had suddenly shifted. Arslan was still sitting there, trying to act cool, but his eyes flicked between us nervously. I didn't even look up at first. I just stirred my coffee, pretending she wasn't there, but her voice broke through the silence, trembling yet desperate. "Hamza, this was your car?" I looked up finally, meeting her eyes that used to hold warmth but now only reflected guilt. I didn't answer immediately. I wanted her to feel the weight of that silence, the kind that cuts deeper than words ever could. She took a hesitant step closer, her fingers clutching her purse. "Hamza, please say something." "I didn't know," she whispered, her voice shaking. A small laugh escaped me, cold and bitter. "Didn't know what, Aisha? That the car you kissed someone was mine? Or that the guy you thought owned it wasn't half the man you imagined?" Her lips trembled. She glanced back at Arslan, who was now clearly uncomfortable, trying to look anywhere but at me. "It wasn't like that," she said weakly. "Then tell me," I said, leaning forward, my tone steady but low. "What was it like?" Because from where I stood, it looked exactly like betrayal. Her eyes filled with tears. "Hamza, please. I thought he told me it was his car. I didn't." I cut her off. "You didn't think to ask? You didn't think to look? You didn't think about the person you said you loved?" I paused, letting out a heavy breath. "No, Aisha, you did think. You saw the car, the shine, the luxury, and your heart made its choice." She covered her face with her hands, tears spilling quietly. The cafe had gone almost silent, people pretending not to listen but clearly watching. I could feel eyes on us from every corner, but I didn't care. My world had already turned into a public drama. One more scene wouldn't matter. Arslan finally stood up, clearing his throat. "Bro, calm down. It's not a big deal." She got confused. "I didn't mean to." I turned to him sharply. "Don't bro me. You knew she was with me." He raised his hands defensively. "Relax, man. It's just what?" I snapped. "A misunderstanding? You let her believe a lie just to get her attention. You knew what you were doing." For a moment, he looked like he might argue, but then he just shrugged, muttered something under his breath, and walked out. Coward. He left her standing there alone, the same way she left my heart, empty and cold. Aisha looked at me, eyes swollen and red. "Hamza, I swear I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought. You thought he was better. I finished for her. You thought he had more. You thought love could be measured by the price of a car." She shook her head, crying harder now. "No, it's not like that anymore. I realize now how wrong I was. Please, Hamza, give me one chance. I'll fix everything." I stared at her for a long moment, searching for even a flicker of the girl I used to love. But all I saw was regret. Not love, just regret. The kind that comes too late, when the damage is already done. I stood up slowly, placing a few bills on the table for my untouched coffee. "You can't fix a heart that you shattered with your own hands," I said quietly. "You can glue it back, sure, but it'll never beat the same again." Her sobs grew louder as I turned and walked past her. I didn't look back. I couldn't, because the truth is, closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from acceptance. And as I stepped out into the sunlight, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. The wind hit my face as I opened my car door. For a second, I glanced at the reflection of the cafe window. She was still standing there, broken, watching me leave. Maybe she finally understood that some mistakes don't get second chances. I started the engine, the roar echoing in the still air, and drove away without a word. The road stretched ahead, empty but peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I felt free, not from her, but from the illusion I once called love. When I drove away that day, I thought I was fine. I told myself I had done the right thing, that I had left the past behind. But the silence inside the car told a different story. Every corner of that vehicle whispered her name. The passenger seat where she once sat laughing, the dashboard where her bracelet still hung, the faint trace of her perfume mixed with the vanilla scent I'd sprayed just for her. I rolled down the windows, hoping the wind would wash it all away. But memories don't fade that easily. They cling, Like dust you can't wipe off no matter how hard you try. That night, I didn't sleep again. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone beside me, silent for the first time in months. No calls, no texts, just emptiness. You don't realize how loud silence can be until it fills every corner of your mind. I replayed everything. Our first meeting, our late-night talks, the way she used to say, "I'm proud of you," when I'd show her my plans. And now all those words felt counterfeit, like lines from a play she'd already performed for someone else. Days turned into a blur. I stopped going out. I stopped smiling. My friends tried to cheer me up, but heartbreak has its own language, one that only the broken can understand. Sometimes they'd talk about moving on, about finding someone better, but they didn't get it. It wasn't just love I lost, it was trust. How do you rebuild that? How do you look at another face and believe their words won't turn into lies too? One evening, my friend Sammy forced me out for a drive. "You can't keep drowning in this," he said. "Come on, man. The city lights will fix your mood." I didn't argue. Maybe I was too tired to resist. We drove aimlessly for an hour until he parked by the sea. The air smelled of salt and rain, and the waves crashed against the rocks like they were angry too. We sat on the hood of the car, saying nothing for a long while. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes people love what you have, not who you are. And when they leave, it's a blessing. They make space for someone who'll see you, not your car." His words hit me harder than he knew. I realized I had been mourning the wrong thing. I wasn't crying because Aisha left. I was crying because I couldn't recognize myself anymore. I had given so much that there was nothing left of me when she walked away. Love shouldn't erase you. It should make you more you. That night, I went home and stood in front of the mirror. My eyes looked tired, but somewhere beneath that exhaustion, I saw a spark, the smallest trace of the old me. I decided to start small. I deleted her photos, her chats, the playlist we made together. Each click hurt, but with every delete, the air in my chest felt lighter. Over the next few weeks, I went back to college. People still whisper about the scene at the cafe, but I didn't care anymore. Aisha avoided me, and that was fine. I had nothing left to say. Slowly, I began focusing on my project again, rebuilding my goals from the ground up. I stopped seeing the car as a reminder of her. Instead, I saw it as proof of my own hard work. One afternoon, as I drove along the coastal road, the sunlight bouncing off the hood, I finally felt it, a calmness I hadn't known in months. The scars were still there, sure, but they didn't sting anymore. Heartbreak hadn't ended me. It had changed me. And maybe that's the strange beauty of pain. It teaches you who you are when everything else is taken away. Months had passed since the cafe scene, and life had slowly started to feel normal again. I wasn't healed completely. Heartbreak doesn't vanish. It fades like old paint, leaving traces behind, but I was finally at peace. I had thrown myself into work, focused on my studies, and started a small side project designing cars. Every day felt like a quiet victory against the chaos I once lived in. I thought the past was behind me. But life has this cruel habit of testing you just when you start to breathe again. It happened on a rainy afternoon. I was sitting in my car outside the university library, the windows fogged with soft mist, when I saw her, Aisha. She stood across the parking lot, holding an umbrella, looking exactly like she did the first time we met. Except now, there was something different in her eyes. Regret. Real, deep regret. For a moment, I didn't move. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as memories flooded back. That kiss, that betrayal, the silence afterward. I told myself to look away, to drive off before old wounds reopened. But she saw me, and when our eyes met, she smiled, that same hesitant smile that used to melt me. She walked toward the car, her step slow, uncertain. I rolled down the window halfway, just enough to hear her. "Hamza," she said softly, rain dripping from her hair. "Can we talk?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her she'd already said everything she needed to the day she kissed someone else. But curiosity, or maybe that last flicker of attachment, made me unlock the door. She slipped in, closing her umbrella, her clothes damp and her eyes glassy with tears. The scent of rain filled the car, blending with faint traces of vanilla. For a second, it felt like time had turned back. "I know I don't deserve to be here," she began, her voice trembling. "But I've been wanting to talk to you for months." I couldn't stop thinking about what I did. You were right. I love the wrong things. I stared straight ahead. "Then why are you here now, Aisha?" She took a shaky breath. "Because I realized what I lost. I've seen Arslan's reality. He never cared about me. The moment I found out the car wasn't his," he laughed, "said I was stupid for believing him. He humiliated me in front of his friends. Hamza. I deserved it, I guess. But it made me see what I had. You, the only person who ever loved me for real." Her words hit hard, not because I wanted her back, but because I could hear genuine pain in them. The old me might have melted right then, but the new me, the one built through heartbreak and self-respect, just felt calm. "Aisha," I said quietly, turning to face her, "you didn't lose me because of Arslan. You lost me because you chose to believe appearances over love. That has nothing to do with him, and everything to do with you." She nodded slowly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I know. I ruined everything. But can't we start again? I've changed, Hamza. I'll prove it." Her voice cracked, and for a brief second, I almost believed her. But then I remembered how easily she had walked away, how quickly her loyalty had shifted. I shook my head. "I'm glad you've changed," I said softly, "but I'm not the same person either. The version of me that loved you, he doesn't exist anymore. You buried him the day you mistook someone else's car for mine." The words hung in the air, heavy but final. She covered her face, sobbing quietly. I didn't hate her anymore. That was the strange part. I just felt detached, like watching a movie you once loved but no longer feel connected to. I handed her a tissue and said, "Take care of yourself, Aisha. I truly hope you find someone who loves you enough to make you forget all this. But it won't be me." She looked at me one last time, her eyes filled with all the apologies the world couldn't contain. Then she opened the door and stepped into the rain. I watched her walk away, shrinking into the distance until she disappeared into the gray blur. And for the first time, the sound of rain didn't make me sad anymore. It sounded like peace. After that rainy afternoon, something shifted inside me. It wasn't dramatic or loud, just a quiet realization that the past had finally lost its power over me. The ache that used to sit in my chest had softened into something lighter, something almost peaceful. I didn't feel the need to hate Aisha or even think about her anymore. It was as if the story had finally written its last line, and I could close the book without looking back. I started pouring my energy into things that actually gave me meaning. My car design project, the same one I'd been sketching for months, suddenly became my obsession. I'd sit up late at night, coffee beside me, music playing softly, sketching new ideas until dawn. My work wasn't just about cars anymore. It was about redemption. Every line I drew, every idea I built felt like a step toward reclaiming the version of myself I'd lost. Around this time, a new face entered my life. Her name was Sarah. She was in my design class, quiet, focused, and completely different from Aisha. She didn't wear heavy makeup, didn't crave attention, didn't try to impress anyone. But there was something about her calm confidence that drew me in. The first time we spoke, it wasn't about love or attraction. It was about creativity. She saw my sketches and said, "You design like someone who's trying to rebuild something that was destroyed." Her words caught me off guard. "Maybe I am," I replied, half smiling. From that day, we started talking more about art, life, ambitions, things that didn't revolve around material show-offs or fake smiles. With Sarah, conversations felt real. I didn't have to pretend to be anything. And maybe that's what I needed, someone who didn't look at what I had, but who I was becoming. One afternoon, we were working on a project together in the workshop. She leaned over my shoulder, studying my drawing, and said, "You know, Hamza, pain has a strange beauty. It either destroys you or turns you into something stronger. Looks like you chose the second one." That line stuck with me. Maybe she was right. Maybe pain was just another kind of teacher, the kind that doesn't use words, but lessons carved straight into your soul. Weeks passed, and with every passing day, I felt lighter. The whispers about the car story slowly faded from campus gossip. People moved on, and so did I. There was still a scar, sure, but it no longer hurt to touch. It was just part of my story. One evening, as Sarah and I walked out of the design lab, the sunset painted the sky in soft orange and pink hues. She stopped, looked at my car, and smiled. "It's beautiful," she said simply. I looked at the car, the same one that once symbolized heartbreak, and smiled back. "Yeah," I said quietly. "It finally feels like mine again." She didn't ask what I meant, and I didn't explain. Some stories don't need retelling. They're just meant to be understood by silence. Driving home that evening, the air felt different. I rolled down the window, let the wind rush through, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't running from the past. I was heading toward the future. Love hadn't ended for me. It had just evolved. I realized that sometimes life takes away what you think you want, only to make room for what you actually need. And maybe, just maybe, that's how healing begins. Not when the pain disappears, but when it finally stops controlling the way you live. It had been almost 6 months since that rainy afternoon. By then my days had rhythm again. Morning coffee, university, work at the design studio, late-night drives along the coast. The pain that once lived in every heartbeat had faded into something quieter, almost nostalgic. Sarah and I had grown close, not in a dramatic love story way, but in that gentle, comfortable rhythm where two people simply understand each other. She was the calm after the storm I never thought would end. One Thursday evening, I was setting up a small exhibition for my car design prototype. It was my biggest achievement yet. My design had been shortlisted for a national innovation contest. The place buzzed with people, camera flashes, polite applause. For once, I felt proud of myself not because someone loved me, but because I had learned to love what I did. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in months. Soft, familiar, and full of old memories. "Congratulations, Hamza." I turned, and there she was, Aisha, dressed elegantly, a little thinner, a little quieter, but those eyes, the same mixture of guilt and longing. For a second the noise around us vanished. All I could hear was my heartbeat echoing through the hall. I forced a polite smile. "Thanks," I said shortly, turning back toward my display. She stepped closer. "You've changed. You look happy." "I am," I replied simply. "And I meant it." She nodded, looking down. "I've been following your work. You're everywhere now. I'm proud of you." Her words didn't sting this time. They just floated past me like harmless smoke. I didn't feel the need to remind her of anything. The silence between us already carried the weight of everything left unsaid. After a moment, she whispered, "Hamza, I keep thinking about that day. I wish I could undo it. You deserve better than what I gave." I looked at her then, really looked. For the first time, I saw her not as a girl who broke me, but as a human being carrying her own mistakes. There was no anger left, just understanding. Maybe it was supposed to happen. I said softly, "If it hadn't, I wouldn't be standing here." Sometimes we need to lose the wrong person to find ourselves. She blinked, tears gathering in her eyes. "I still wish it hadn't been you I hurt." I smiled faintly. "We both learned something, Aisha. That's enough." At that moment, Sarah walked up, holding 2 cups of coffee. She smiled at Aisha politely, then handed one to me. "This design is getting attention," she said. "Everyone wants to talk to you." Aisha looked between us, realization dawning on her face. Not jealousy, just a quiet understanding that the chapter was truly closed. She straightened her shoulders, offered a small smile, and said, "She's lucky." "No," Sarah said gently before I could reply. "He's ready." Aisha nodded once more, turned, and disappeared into the crowd. No tears, no drama, just a graceful exit that felt like the final line of a long, painful poem. That night, when the event ended, I stood outside looking at the city lights reflected on my car. The same car that had once witnessed betrayal now stood as a symbol of victory, not over anyone else, but over myself. I realized closure doesn't come when the other person apologizes. It comes when you no longer need them to. And for the first time, I felt grateful, not for losing her, but for everything that losing her taught me. Weeks passed after that exhibition night. Life slowed into something softer, steadier. There were no sudden shocks, no hidden heartbreaks, just days filled with quiet routines and laughter that didn't hurt to feel. Sarah and I started spending more time together. Not because we planned it, but because life just kept placing us in the same spaces. Library corners, late-night cafes, the parking lot after class. She had a way of talking that made time slip away. No filters, no pretense. Just real words that reach you where it mattered. I'd catch myself watching her sometimes, the way she pushed her hair behind her ear when she was focused, or how she'd pause before replying, as if she wanted every word to mean something. One evening, after a long study session, we decided to take a drive. No destination, no plans, just the road and the city lights stretching endlessly ahead. She laughed when I opened the passenger door and said, "You still do that old-school gentleman thing?" I smiled. Some habits are worth keeping. We drove through quiet streets, windows half down, the night air mixing with the scent of rain on asphalt. Somewhere along the road, we stopped by a roadside tea stall. Plastic chairs, old songs on a cracked radio, steam rising from chipped cups. It was nothing fancy, but it felt real. She took a sip of her tea and said, "You know, Hamza, you don't need to impress me." I looked at her, a little surprised. "What do you mean?" She smiled softly. "You already did, by being honest, by not pretending to be okay when you weren't, by being real." For a moment, I couldn't say anything. I just stared at her, realizing how different this felt. With Aisha, love had been loud. Pictures, attention, show. With Sarah, it was quiet, almost invisible, but it stayed. It didn't need to prove anything. It just was. We talked for hours that night. About dreams, fears, things we lost and found again. I told her how betrayal had changed me, not into a colder person, but a calmer one. She listened without interrupting, without judging, just silence and understanding. That's how healing begins. Not with words, but with someone who knows when not to speak. Later, as we drove back, the horizon began to glow with the faintest hint of dawn. I pulled over near the edge of the city, where the sun started to rise over the empty highway. Sarah leaned against the window, half asleep, the early light brushing across her face. I looked at her and felt something shift inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't the rush of attraction or the fire of obsession. It was something deeper, steadier, like peace finding its way home. Maybe this was what love was supposed to feel like. Not a storm that sweeps you off your feet, but a sunrise that warms you slowly. Without thinking too much, I reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. She just smiled, eyes still closed, and whispered, "You okay?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "For the first time, I really am." And as the sky turned gold and the world slowly woke up around us, I realized something beautiful. The same car that once witnessed my heartbreak was now carrying me toward a new beginning. Months passed. My life began to move faster than I'd ever imagined. The design I had built in my tiny room, the one born out of heartbreak and late-night coffee, won a National Innovation Award. Suddenly, my name was everywhere, in magazines, online articles, invitations. I should have been thrilled, but part of me stayed cautious. I knew what sudden attention could do. I'd seen it before. Sarah was there through all of it. Steady, quiet, always reminding me to breathe. On the morning of the TV interview, I was nervous. She straightened my tie, smiled, and said, "Remember, the world is watching your work, not your pain. You already healed that part." The lights were bright in the studio. The cameras felt heavier than they should have. Questions came fast, about my design, my goals, my past. And then the host smiled and said, "People still remember the story that once surrounded your car. There was someone named Aisha, right?" For a second, I froze. The room fell silent. But then I smiled, calm and honest. Yes, she was part of the story. But this design, this dream, it isn't about a person anymore. It's about growth. Later that night, Scrolling to my phone, I saw her name again. Aisha Ali commented on your success. She'd written, "Proud of you, Hamza. You deserve every bit of this." No bitterness, no drama, just a few kind words. For a moment, I felt something close to peace, like the final page of a book finally closing itself. But fame has its own traps. People who'd once ignored me suddenly remembered my number. Parties, praise, fake smiles, they all came rushing in. It was strange how success could make you feel the same kind of emptiness as heartbreak, just wrapped in glitter. One night, when I started to sound too proud of an article that called me the future of car design, Sarah looked at me and said softly, "The car didn't change you before. Don't let fame do it now." It hit me harder than any insult could, because she was right. I'd fought too hard to rebuild myself to lose my humility now. That weekend, I drove alone to the sea, the same spot where a month ago I'd sat shattered, crying over what I thought I'd lost. The waves were still there. The air still carried that salt smell, but I wasn't the same man. I stood by the shore, watching the water crash and retreat, and whispered, "Thank you for everything, for the pain, for the lessons, for the strength." Sometimes healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without bleeding. When I got back to the car, the city lights shimmered in the distance like quiet applause. And I realized something. Success isn't measured by trophies or followers. It's when you can look at the past and feel nothing but gratitude. A year later, peace felt like my default setting. My designs were recognized abroad, and Sarah and I had started our own small studio, half workshop, half dream. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. One quiet evening, as I was checking emails, a message popped up. The name startled me for a moment. Aisha. Her message was short, almost poetic. "I'm happy you found peace. Thank you for forgiving me, even silently." I read it twice, smiled, and deleted it, not out of anger, but because it no longer carried weight. Some stories don't need sequels. They're beautiful because they end. A few days later, I drove to the old campus. The parking lot was nearly empty. I parked the same sports car under the same tree, where everything had once started and ended. I sat there for a while, just listening to the wind, the distant laughter of students, the sound of my heartbeat, steady and calm. I ran my fingers over the steering wheel and whispered, "We've come a long way, haven't we?" That car had seen everything: betrayal, heartbreak, healing, success. It wasn't just metal and speed anymore. It was a witness. Sarah arrived a few minutes later, holding 2 cups of coffee, the same way she did that night at the exhibition. "Still talking to the car?" she teased, smiling. "Old habits," I replied. We sat there, sipping coffee, watching the sun dip behind the buildings. I turned to her and said, "You know what's funny? Some stories begin with heartbreak, so they can end with purpose. Mine began with a kiss that broke me, and ended with a lesson that built me." She reached for my hand, her thumb tracing slow circles on my skin. "Maybe that's how real stories go," she whispered. "They hurt first, then heal." I started the engine. The familiar sound filled the air, no longer heavy with memories. As we drove away, the city lights flickered to life, and her laughter filled the car, soft, effortless, the sound of peace. For the first time, the road ahead didn't feel uncertain. It felt open, endless, and mine,